Okay, so this video is to show how to do Secretary of State service on motorist. All right, so we are going to, what this is necessary when personal service fails. So as we've learned, once a case is filed, it has to be served. So you file a case, you serve it. You file it, and then you take the file stamped copies and the case schedule, if you're in King or Pierce, and you email it to Eric, who is the guy who does all of our service for us, and then he will serve it. If he tries to serve it but can't serve it, then he will give us a declaration of non-service. And you have to follow up with him on these. He doesn't just automatically do it. Sometimes he'll try to serve for weeks, and that's fine. What I'd like to do is, after I've sent Eric service and it's been about 10 days, I like to follow up. And if he says, yes, we've tried to do service, but we can't do it, we can't find them, there's a gate there, whatever, immediately ask him for a declaration of non-service. Okay, I understand. Can you give me a declaration of non-service? And then you can tell him you can continue to try to serve, or maybe change the address. Like, here's a different address you can serve them at. You can have Eric continue to try to serve them personally, but you need that declaration of non-service for the Secretary of State process. So ask him for the declaration of non-service, and then he might have different address. And then you can also ask him, is there a different address that you could potentially serve them at? You can see if you can figure out a way to serve them at work. So you can continue to work with Eric to get service done, but this Secretary of State is a plan B. It is an ultimate backstop. It is a last resort, but essentially Washington state law says that if it's difficult to serve someone or impossible to serve someone, you can do the Secretary of State service, and that will count as service. And so we'll continue to try to serve them, including that I will get an order allowing service by mail. And the order allowing service by mail is basically the same as a Secretary of State service. So if you guys do the Secretary of State service and I get an order allowing service by mail, then it's pretty much ironclad. There's no way out of service, and we can get service even if the person is difficult to serve. But we have to do all these steps. The file, send a service to Eric. Eric has to try to serve. We have to get a declaration of non-service, and then we have to do the Secretary of State and the mail service. So it's all together. It's a package deal. Okay. So here we are in the Styles Law Dropbox. I'm going to come here and show you guys where some of the resources for the Secretary of State services. Actually, I don't know exactly what the path is. Okay, so now let's assume then that we have a case that went to litigation, and it's been filed, and we have a police report. If we don't have a police report, this is a little bit more complicated because we have to find an address for the person. And so I assume that when you filed it, you probably would have asked me, hey, this crash doesn't have a police report. All I have is the name and date of birth of the person who was involved, the tortfeasor. So if that's the case, then maybe we would use some kind of a lookup tool to find this person's address and other contact information. All right, so let's just see if we can find this. Styles Law, legal resources. It's gonna be in here. It's gotta be in here somewhere. There's a whole folder on it. So probably in PI. There it is. MISC Law, Secretary of State Service. Okay, so you can see the path there. Because you can use Secretary of State Service, I suppose, for some other areas of law. So it's not only for PI, but you guys will only use it for PI. Okay, so let me open this cover page for motorists. And so none of this stuff is going to change other than this part down here. I mean, I suppose if you're in a different office, you can change this part here where you have the return address be different, but all this other stuff The only really thing that you need to change is the name and address right here. And the name and address right there is going to be the name and address of the defendant. So for example, here is a case with a police report and a defendant, Ji Guang On at Oak Harbor. So I would take this defendant's name and address and I would just plug it in right here, and then you're done. That's it. It's good to go. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to print this cover page. Then you are going to go back into here and you're going to access this document and you're going to fill this out. Okay, and so here's what this document is going to require: the summons and complaint, which we already discussed. We filed that and have the case schedule, all that stuff. Okay, and then this plaintiff's affidavit thing, this is the cover sheet, so you're good. On my cover sheet, I wrote that stuff. So it wants an affidavit. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so this is the reason why the affidavit of non-service is helpful, because we can include that in this. So we'll include the affidavit of non-service in this and the cover page, and that will comply with these two requirements. Okay, so we're just going to focus on 1 and 2. We're always going to do this because it's very unlikely that we're going to have the defendant's endorsed receipt of a registered mail. It's basically impossible. We're just going to assume we're not going to ever get that. So just have the cover page and the affidavit of non-service, and you're good. And then you fill in this part, the defendant's name, Ji Guang On, and then the address from the police report, and then the return address for the confirmation of service, which, I put the Linwood office address. Okay. And then finally, $50. So you need to send a check, $50 check. Typically, it's just one person. So it's an additional $50 per address. And so we really only need one address. If you do the address that's on the police report, I mean, it's pretty much good. You're good to go. So you fill this out. And then you include the cover page, include the declaration of non-service, and a check for $50. At one point, I thought it said it wants 2 copies of the summons and complaint, but I guess it's fine. Just 1 copy. Yeah. So the cover page, which I will also modify to include the attorney's affidavit of compliance, and then the declaration of non-service, and then the check for $50, and the summons and the complaint. Mail all that to the Secretary of State at this address, just a regular one, to P.O. Box 1. You don't need to do any overnighting or anything like that. It's not that. If you do this right, which should happen, 10 days after Eric starts trying to do service, then you're fine. You don't need to rush anything. You can just do it the normal way. And then you just send that off and you let me know. You say, hey, Jeremiah, Eric couldn't serve this person. Here's a declaration of non-service. We've already sent Secretary of State service in the mail. Here's the case for you to do service by mail. And then I'll take it over from there to get an order allowing service by mail. And then I will use our mailing to send certified and regular mail to them as well. So they should be bombarded by essentially, 3 different mailings, one from the Secretary of State, 2 from our office, should be flooding into their house. And then, if worst case scenario, I have to go to court and they start contesting, service, it's going to be pretty hard when we have Secretary of State saying they serve, we have an order from the court allowing service by mail, which we complied with. At the end of the day, service is this thing that has been really, really hard for us because, we've lost cases because of service, and that is not acceptable. This is a hard line in the sand that I want everyone to understand and know how to do. For out-of-state and federal jurisdiction cases, 2 years is the statute of limitations. At 1.5 years, this needs to be completed. Demand complete, case filed, service, the process of service started. For cases that are Washington jurisdiction, 3 years is statute of limitations. For third-party cases, at 2.5 years, this process needs to start. Demand complete, case filed, service started, process of service started, so that we have 6 months buffer time to get all this stuff right, to fix all this stuff, to make it all known, to get it all done. Okay, for UIM cases, statute of limitations is 6 years. At 5.5 years, this stuff has to get done. Of course, statute of limitations cases is really easy to serve because statute of limitations UIM cases are easy to serve because the defendant is an insurance company, which is served very easily in Tumwater, as a corporation. Anyway, so this is what we need to do Secretary of State service. Just mail all those things to the Secretary of State, and then we will receive a return. Okay, and then notify me. All right, thanks.